Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. I of course am just another heavy metal maniac, and today I am doing another discography ranking. Today I'm going to be ranking all 12 studio albums from none other than Austrian black metal band Abigor. So admittedly my history with this band doesn't start until like fairly recently, like a few months ago. That's when I really kind of started diving into this band's catalog and listening to their albums. But then shortly after I really kind of started getting into this band, it was Peter Kubik tragically passed away, so rest in peace Peter Kubik, because to me he was truly like a visionary, not just in black metal but in metal in general, because Abigor I think are just one of the most unique and awesome entities in the black metal space. They're just a really unique band, and I think they helped pave the way for a lot of other bands that followed them in terms of like kind of more avant-garde metal, progressive black metal I should say, and just kind of like other black metal stuff. Like this band really helped pave the way for so many bands that came after them. And yeah, honestly, after diving into this band's back catalog, I can honestly say without a doubt that they are definitely one of my favorite black metal bands in general. And yeah, we're going to be going over all 12 of their studio albums today. We're not counting EPs, live albums, compilations, any of that stuff. So without further ado, enough of my ramblings, let's just get right into the rankings. So taking the number 12 spot on my list, it is Totschlager, a Saint Slayer's songbook, released in 2020. Abigor have no bad albums in my opinion. Like, I think this band is just consistently awesome, honestly, so they have no bad albums in my opinion. But there are definitely albums I like more than others, and for me, Totschlager, it lands at last place, not because I think it's a bad album, but just because I think it's kind of, I don't know, it's not as good as the other stuff that this band put out. Like not a lot of this on this album really jumped out at me compared to other releases. Like, there are some good songs in here, like Silent Towers, Screaming Tombs I thought was a good song. The last track, Terra Commando Eligos, I thought was pretty good too. Forgive me if I mispronounce like a lot of these words too, because this band also has a lot of titles that are in like German and Latin and stuff, so forgive me if I mispronounce any of this shit. But yeah, I do really like, this album. It's just not a lot jumped out at me with a lot of this album. Like, I listened to it, I thought it was good, but it wasn't as memorable as some of this other advanced material. So that's really the only reason why a Saint Slayer songbook lands at number 12. I do enjoy it, I would return to it, and I feel like it maybe could grow on me a little bit more, but as it stands right now, it is my least favorite album from this band. Alright, taking the number 11 spot on my list, it is Satanized, A Journey Through Cosmic Infinity, released in 2001. This was kind of the point in Abigor's career where they were fully embracing kind of just being more of an avant-garde kind of black metal band, and there's a lot more kind of experimental stuff, like on this album in particular. I feel like they kind of started being kind of more avant-garde with the album that kind of came out before this one, but this is kind of where they really started to embrace that identity, or that aspect of themselves, in my opinion. I just think they did it better on some of the later albums. So when it comes to the more avant-garde experimental stuff from this band, I just feel like they did stuff better. I feel like they kind of just did that style better later on. It's not to say this album is bad or anything, because I do enjoy it. Repulsor, I think, is a good song. I really like the song Battlestar Abigor. Like, that's probably my favorite track on here. But for the most part, this is a solid album, but not, not a super, like, it's just not a super memorable album at points for me, like, especially towards the second half of this album. Like, the energy, I feel like, kind of started to wane, and I personally started to lose a bit of interest. And again, I just feel like they did the style better later. So Satanized, I do like it. I think it's a good album, but for me, it's not dead last, but it is second to last. Alright, taking the number 10 spot on my list, it is Time... Oh god, I have to read this whole thing, don't I? Time is the sulfur in the veins of the saint, an excursion on Satan's fragmenting principle. Longest album title in the history of long album titles, but whatever. Man, okay, whatever. Long-ass title aside, I like this album. It's two 19-minute songs, part 1 and part 2. And yeah, these are it's only 2 tracks, but they're both 19 minutes long, so it is the length of a full-length album. And I do enjoy it. I think it is good. I feel like in the 38 minutes or so, roughly, that this album is, I feel like some of the songs, or like some of the parts of the songs were more interesting than other parts. Like I personally thought part 1 was better than part 2. But they're both like pretty good, and they have a lot of changes, a lot of kind of cool dynamic shifts, and really kind of interesting passages. And I feel like they really interesting like transitions between parts, and I think this album is pretty good. Like I do like it. I don't feel super compelled to like go back and revisit it just because of the kind of the way it's structured. I prefer, you know, albums that are, you know, that have kind of more tracks on them usually. But I would return to it over like other albums. Like I would probably return to this one over the other 2 bands that I mentioned previously. But as it stands right now, Time is the Sulphur in the Veins of the Saints, again, long ass title. It lands at number 10. I do like it, but there's just other albums that I like more. Alright, and we are entering the single-digit part of this list now, so my number 9 choice is Leitmotif Lucifer, The 7 Temptations of Man, released in 2014. I do really enjoy this album. I think this album is honestly pretty damn good, and there's some absolutely killer songs on here, like Temptation 1, Ego. All the songs, by the way, are, you know, Temptation, and then there's 7 tracks on here, they're all numbered 1 through 7 with Roman numerals. So Temptation 1, Ego, it's pretty good. Acrasia, Temptation 3, Acrasia is pretty good. Temptation 5, Neglect, is a really good song too. Temptation 6, Compos Mentis, I really enjoyed that song. I think that song is really good, honestly. Yeah, I do really like this album. I would definitely return to this album. It's just, for me, I feel like maybe it's kind of just like the other thing with the other albums I mentioned, where it's good, but there's albums that I just kind of like more. This is when they, you know, again, they're kind of just like, they were just fully embracing being a full-blown, like, progressive black metal band at this point, really, again, avant-garde stuff, which I do prefer kind of like the more classic, like, 90s, less avant-garde Abigor stuff, but this stuff I do still really enjoy, too. So, Leitmotif Lucifer, it lands at number 9. Good album, but there's just others that are better in my opinion. So, taking the number 8 spot on my list, it is Taphonomia Aeternitatis. I said that very convincingly, and then there's another part of this album title in German that I'm not going to even try pronouncing because my German is absolutely horrible. But this is their final studio album to date, and probably their final studio album ever, because obviously with the passing of PK, I don't really see how this band could continue without him. It would be, I just don't think like they should really. But this is I think a very, very fine way for this band to cap off their career. Songs like Soldaten Satans, I really enjoy that song. Feasting on the Prophet's Blood is a banger. Extermination Angel, I really enjoy that song. Cult of Elder Chaos, I really enjoy too. I like the kind of more doomy elements on this album, like especially kind of towards like the back of this album. Like you get these kind of more slower, kind of doomy riffs, and I feel like it kind of gives this album a really cool edge. And yeah, again, I think it is a very good way to kind of for this band to cap off their career. Kind of unfortunate they had to go out with, you know, when the main man behind this band, you know, unfortunately taking his own life, but you know, stuff happens. But this is a pretty kick-ass album, and again, I really enjoy it. So yeah, for me, Taphonomia Aeternitatis, it lands at number 8. Alright, taking the number 7 spot on my list, it is Opus 4, released in 1996. I feel like in comparison to some of the other earlier stuff from this band, like their more 90s material, this is, I feel like, not as strong as some of the other albums in that era of this band, but this is still a really good album in my opinion. Like Crimson Horizons and Ashen Skies is, I feel like, one of the best songs Abigor's written in their entire career. I really dig that particular song in particular. Eerie Constellation is a great song. A Mirage for the Eyes of the Blind, I really enjoy. The Elder God, My Dragon Magic, I think is a really good song too. Yeah, this is when they were definitely more of a kind of more in the realm of traditional black metal. They hadn't really fully embraced being crazy, weird, avant-garde, all that stuff at this point. But yeah, I just feel like the other albums in this band's era, which, as I said, I feel like I like this band's more classic 90s material more than their more avant-garde experimental type stuff. But Opus 4, I feel like, is definitely kind of the weakest of their 90s catalog. But that's not really saying much, because I still think it is a really good album. It's just, for me, it lands at number 7, just because, again, there's other albums that I think, personally, are better. Taking the number 6 spot on my list, it is Fractal Possession, released in 2007. This album is pretty nuts, and I honestly really enjoy it. I feel like this is where they really perfected their kind of more experimental avant-garde formula. Like, this album is, like I said, this album is crazy, but crazy in a good way. Like, there's like the riffs and all the time changes and shit, like, it's just kind of bonkers. Like, there's almost like kind of mathcore like riffs on this album at points, and there's also like all these kind of crazy proggy flourishes, and there's like industrial elements. It really is just kind of a mashup of like a lot of different elements, but I feel like they blend so well together, and the songs, like, they're all like super memorable in my opinion, and I just really enjoy this album, honestly. Like, usually I'm not, like, avant-garde metal for me, it's very hit or miss with me. I'm not the biggest fan of that genre. Like, some of it I really like I really enjoy, yeah, like Abigor, obviously. I enjoy, like, Ulcerate and, like, Deathspell Omega, but other shit, like the Obscura from Gorguts, I just still don't like that album. Or, like, Portal, I can't get into Portal. So yeah, avant-garde metal is very kind of hit or miss with me. But this album, I feel like, is, this album is just awesome. I really enjoy this album. It's number 6, which might not seem that high, but I do really like this album. Cold Void Choir is an awesome song. Injection Satan is a banger. Liberty Rises a Diagonal Flame, I feel like it has kind of more melodicism going on with it, and I feel like that song's pretty cool. Vaporized Tears is an awesome song. Yeah, I do really enjoy this album. I would definitely return to it. Doesn't quite beat out some of their more classic material for me, but I think it is a banger. So for me, Fractal Possession, it lands at number 6. Alright, we are entering the top 5 now, and taking the number 5 spot, it is Hollensvang, Chronicles of Perdition, released in 2018. This is my favorite album from their more modern era. I dig this album a lot. I feel like this album is maybe less crazy, less avant-garde than some of their upper material. Like, I feel like this is them kind of gaining a little bit back to the traditional black metal sound, but there's still, you know, all the kind of stuff you expect from later Abigor and on this album too. All Hail Darkness and Evil, the first track, is absolutely awesome. Sword of Silence, I really enjoy too. The Cold Breath of Satan is a banger. Christ's Descent into Hell is a really cool song. Yeah, overall, like I said, this is my favorite out of their more modern era. I really enjoy this album. Yeah, like I said, I feel like it is kind of getting a little bit away from the more avant-garde territory and getting back more to kind of traditional black metal at spots. But it's still got avant-garde stuff in it. Yeah, I do really enjoy this album. For me, Hollensvang, it lands at number 5. Doesn't quite beat out their classic material for me again, but it is a banger, and I would definitely return to it without a doubt. Alright, taking the number 4 spot on my list, it is Channeling the Quintessence of Satan, released in 1999. I feel like this is where the kind of shift towards more avant-garde territory kind of started with Abigor, but they didn't really fully kind of embrace it on this album, I feel like. I feel like there's kind of more carryover from their previous material in here. Like, you get kind of there's some like kind of almost symphonic elements on here at certain spots, which is kind of present on Supreme Immortal Art, which we'll get to. And again, this kind of is, I think, more in the vein of like kind of traditional black metal in most spots. But I love this album. This is honestly like a fantastic album in my opinion. I love a lot of songs on here. Like Dawn of Human Dust is such an awesome song. Equilibrium Pass By, I really enjoy. Wildfire and Desire, I really enjoy that song. Utopia Consumed, Demon's Vortex, I enjoy every single song on this album. Really, like, this is an amazing album in my opinion. Like, I take the shit out of this album. Yeah, Channeling the Quintessence of Satan, again, I think this is where kind of the Abigor, the experimental, weird, the crazy Abigor stuff kind of started with this album, and then they just kind of fully embraced it later on. But this is just an amazing album. I do really like this album. So for me, Channeling the Quintessence of Satan, it lands at number 4. Alright, taking the number 3 spot on my list, it is Nacht Simon from the Twilight Kingdom. I feel like the top three, honestly, are all kind of tied for being my number one. But again, in a ranking, you can't have albums be tied, so you kind of have to, you have to. It's a ranking. You have to put them in. You have to assign numbers to them, and it's difficult, especially when you have albums like this one, which this album is just awesome. I feel like this might be kind of the fan favorite among Abigor fans. Like, this is the one where I've seen kind of the most positive and the highest ratings on Metal Storm and stuff for this album. There's some really awesome female vocals on this album, which I feel like this is their first album to feature female vocals on some of these tracks. It's not an overly huge part, but I feel like it adds a really cool edge to a lot of these songs. And these songs are just awesome. Unleashed Axe Age is such a banger. Scars in the Landscape of God is an amazing song too. I love that song. Dornan is amazing. Revealed Secrets of the Whispering Moon, A Frozen Soul in a Winter Shadow. I love this album. This is honestly a flawless album in my opinion. I have zero issues or gripes with this album whatsoever. I think this is really just an amazing album. I love every single track on here. All the songs are super well written, super memorable. They all stand out. And yeah, I feel like this is honestly one of the greatest albums out of classic, kind of that classic second wave of black metal. This is definitely one of my favorite releases, as are the other two above this one. But yeah, Noctimen, again, I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry. I'm horrible at pronouncing words that are not in English. It's an amazing album. For me, it lands at number 3. Alright, and taking the number 2 spot on my list, it is Verwoesten / Invoke the Dark Age, released in 1994. So yeah, this is their debut album, and this is definitely the most traditional sounding black metal album out of the bunch. This honestly kind of sounds like it could have come out of the Norwegian scene, but obviously this band, they're from Austria. But it honestly would have, if this album was released by a Norwegian band, it would have fit right at home with all the other classic Norwegian black metal bands, in my opinion. But even though this isn't maybe what Abigor would become in their later career, I love this album. This is an amazing, amazing album in my opinion. Definitely, I feel like one of the best black metal debut albums of all time. Universe of Black Divine is such an amazing song. Kingdom of Darkness is probably my favorite track on here. I love the shit out of that song. My god, that song in particular is amazing. Eye to Eye at Armageddon is incredible too. In Sin, I love. My Soft Vision in Blood kind of has really cool melodies at the beginning. Yeah, definitely their most traditional sounding kind of black metal album. I love the production on this album. It's just that very raw second wave black metal sound, and this is honestly, again, I just feel like this is one of the greatest black metal debuts of all time. Yeah, I love this album. Again, maybe not the best representation of Abigor as a band, but as a standalone album, it's fucking amazing in my opinion, and I absolutely adore it. It's not quite number 1 for me, just because there's one that edges it out just ever so slightly. But Verwoesten, I love it. It is an amazing album. Alright, and taking the number 1 spot on my list, it is Supreme Immortal Art, released in 1998. This might be a bit of a dark horse in the race when it comes to this band, but I dig this album. This album is amazing. It's a masterpiece, really. I don't want to use that word, overuse that word, so I kind of hesitate from using the word masterpiece, but this album is a masterpiece in my opinion. I love everything about this album. The production on it's perfect. Just that very, very raw production sound, and I think it's absolutely just incredible. Songs like Satan and Me, the title track is amazing. Soil of Souls, Eclipse My Heart, Crown Me King, Blood and Soil. I love every single track on this album. I just legitimately absolutely love this album, and this is honestly an album that kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I thought honestly one of the first two would probably be my number 1, but this album kind of just snuck up on me. I enjoy those kind of almost symphonic elements on this album at spots. It's proggy, it's heavy, it's just dark, it's evil, it's got just amazing riffs. Again, the production of this album, I absolutely just love the way this album sounds on the production front, and I just love everything about this album. So for me, Supreme Immortal Art, it is my number 1 Abigor album. This is honestly good. This is one of my favorite black metal albums of all time. Yeah, Supreme Immortal Art, it is my favorite release from Abigor. And that concludes my Abigor discography ranking. Yeah, Abigor, definitely, I'm a much bigger fan of this band after doing this discography ranking, and these guys have definitely risen through the ranks to become one of my favorite black metal bands of all time, and I really enjoy everything this band has ever done throughout their entire career. So, yeah, for me, that about does it. If you made it to this video, you are awesome, and I appreciate you. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, do you agree with my rankings? Do you disagree? What band should I rank next? Let me know down in the comments. Do consider subscribing as well if you're not already, because I do have a lot more content coming your way. And like I said, that about does it. I'm just another heavy metal maniac. I'll see you all sometime in the future. In the meantime, all of you take care and have a great day. So long.